Your frequency is lying to you. And it's why your reality isn't changing, no matter how hard you try. You've visualized, meditated, journaled, affirmed, and still, life feels like it's looping on autopilot. You hit walls that don't make sense. You feel heavy, restless, or stuck, even when you're doing all the right things. That's not a coincidence. That's misalignment. Because vibration isn't a vibe, it's a law. And no matter what your mouth says, your frequency tells the truth. Thoth didn't write the emerald tablets for fun. He etched them in stone to survive time, not as wisdom, but as technology. The kind that doesn't just teach, it recalibrates. These teachings aren't something to learn. They're something to remember. Not with your head, but with your field. You're not stuck because life hates you. You're stuck because you're vibrating at war with the world you want. And once you see that, everything can change. Not someday, now. Most people are trapped in a prison they can't see, can't touch, and don't even know exists. They go about their lives thinking they're making choices, setting goals, building a future, when in truth, they're just repeating a pattern, a loop, a vibrational cycle that was set in motion long before they ever had the awareness to question it. Thoth called this the invisible prison, not because it hides in shadows, but because it hides in plain sight, in your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions. You weren't born with this frequency. You inherited it, picked it up from the people around you. The world trained you to vibrate small, to settle, to obey frequencies that do not serve you. And now you wonder why your life doesn't feel like your own. This prison doesn't come with bars, it comes with beliefs. This is just how things are. Be realistic. You're too sensitive. Don't question it. You've heard these lines so many times, they've turned into your inner voice. But they're not yours. They're borrowed vibrations from systems that were never designed to help you thrive. They were built to keep you compliant, predictable, manageable. And the worst part? You've been trained to think the problem is you. That maybe you're not working hard enough, not manifesting properly, not disciplined enough. But none of that matters if you're still broadcasting the same trapped frequency. You can't outwork misalignment. You can only dissolve it. Every thought you repeat, every emotion you suppress, every truth you ignore, it all builds the walls of the prison a little higher. You become more invested in the illusion. You wear the costume of someone who's fine when your field is screaming for realignment. And it's not because you're broken, it's because you've never been taught how to tune yourself. The emerald tablets were never meant to entertain, they were designed to recalibrate. Thoth didn't leave behind spiritual fluff. He left a code, a blueprint, a way out, not out of society or responsibility, but out of the loop. Because when your frequency is distorted, life feels like effort, like friction. You chase clarity and find confusion. You try to create change, but everything resists. You try to heal, and the same wound reappears in a new disguise. That's not fate. That's the field reflecting the noise inside you. The tablets reveal that your reality is not something that happens to you. It's something that mirrors you. It listens to your frequency, not your frustration. And if what you're experiencing feels like a cycle, it's because you're still transmitting the same signal that created it. But not all knowledge is meant to be shared here. Some things are too raw, too direct for platforms like this. That's why we created Insights Academy, our free newsletter where we go deeper. Sign up through the link in the description. And for a limited time, you'll also receive a free copy of the Kybalion, a text that shifts perspective at the core. Because once you start seeing the prison, you can start loosening its grip. You stop blaming yourself and start decoding the field. And when that happens, something remarkable begins. You get lighter, your breath deepens, the noise quiets. Not because your problems vanish, but because the signal clears. You begin to feel like yourself, not the version you perform, but the one underneath the programming. And that version doesn't need to fight to change the world. That version tunes into a higher frequency and watches the world respond. That's not magic, that's alignment. And alignment doesn't need to force. It simply resonates. The invisible prison was never locked. The door's been open the whole time. The key is remembering how to walk through it. And the teachings of Thoth aren't theory, they're the steps, the escape plan, the recalibration codes. If you're here, it means something in you already knew that. You're not just curious, you're remembering. And once the remembering starts, the illusion can't hold, because the field always follows the one who vibrates from truth. Everything is frequency, not just the music you hear or the signals sent through satellites, but everything, your body, your thoughts, the way someone walks into a room, the silence between words, even time itself. Thoth wasn't being poetic when he said all is vibration. He was stating a fundamental law of reality. The world you touch and see isn't solid. It's compressed energy, shaped by frequency. You're not living in a material world. You're living in a vibrational field. That's why your life doesn't shift when you change your mind. It shifts when you change your frequency. Because matter doesn't lead energy. Energy leads matter. Always. But most people live backwards. They try to change outcomes without changing the origin point. They adjust the furniture in a house built on a shaky foundation. They focus on the effects and ignore the cause. So they repeat. They push harder. They say the right words, do the rituals, repeat the mantras. But nothing shifts. Because the words are empty if the frequency behind them doesn't match. The universe doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. And what you are is what you vibrate. Your frequency is the sum of your internal state. Not just your thoughts, but your emotions, your memories, your nervous system, your presence. It's not just about thinking high, it's about feeling aligned. That's why some people can say nothing and change a room, while others talk endlessly and nothing lands. It's not about information, it's about resonance. The world responds to resonance, to the signal beneath your actions. You've felt it before, the moment someone walks in, and you just know they're grounded, calm, powerful. It's not their outfit, it's not their smile, it's their field. Thoth taught that reality is not fixed, it's frequency-based. This means it's tunable. And just like a radio, if you want to hear different music, you don't argue with the current station, you change the dial. That's what this is about. Not pretending your life is okay, not faking gratitude, not repeating things you don't believe. It's about tuning, returning, recalibrating. It's about shifting the state that generates your reality. And you can't fake that. The field knows. It always knows. When your frequency is low, fragmented by fear, guilt, resistance, everything feels heavy. Conversations don't flow, projects stall, relationships misfire. You get caught in loops and call it bad luck. But it's not luck, it's feedback. The field is showing you where you're off. And that's not punishment, it's precision. The universe isn't ignoring you, it's waiting for you to match what you're asking for. Until then, it'll keep sending lessons instead of blessings. But here's the truth most don't want to face. Raising your frequency isn't always pretty. It's not always sitting in peace with a candle and a crystal. Sometimes it's grief rising to the surface. Sometimes it's shaking out trauma. Sometimes it's losing people who can't follow your new vibration. Because when your field rises, anything out of resonance gets revealed. The chaos isn't a sign it's not working. It's a sign it is. Vibrational transformation is messy, but it's also magnetic. When you shift internally, life starts to organize itself around your new state. You start noticing synchronicities. People appear out of nowhere. Solutions land without effort. Not because you hacked the system, but because you aligned with it. That's what Thoth meant when he said, "As within, so without." The outer always mirrors the inner. Always. If you want to change your life, don't start with your goals. Start with your frequency. Ask yourself not what you want, but what you emit. Because the universe isn't listening to your dreams, it's reading your signal. And when that signal is clear, coherent, and grounded in truth, reality bends. Not because you forced it, but because that's the law. You were never meant to follow the world. You were meant to tune it. Thoth didn't teach that reality is created by effort. He revealed that it's shaped by consciousness, not the scattered thoughts that flicker across your mind during the day, but the deeper signal, your sustained state of awareness. That signal is always broadcasting. And it's not passive. It's not waiting to see what happens so it can respond. It's active. It tunes into frequencies like a living radio, which means your reality isn't objective. It's interpretive. It's a mirror. And what you experience is not truth. It's a reflection of where your consciousness is currently tuned. Most people think consciousness is abstract, philosophical, even mystical. But it's not. It's a dial, a field of perception that dictates what you can and can't receive, what you notice, what resonates, what bounces off. Your beliefs don't sit in your mind. They ripple through your field. If you believe love is dangerous, your field will tune out healthy relationships without you even noticing. If you believe money is scarce, your nervous system will block opportunities before they can even land. This is why so many people feel stuck. They don't realize they're tuned to a reality they no longer want, but haven't yet outgrown. The shift doesn't happen by willpower. It happens by realignment. Your consciousness is not just influenced by your thoughts. It's shaped by emotion, memory, energy, and even your body's posture. Every part of you participates in the frequency. That's why repeating affirmations without embodiment rarely works. You can say, "I am abundant" 1,000 times, but if your field is broadcasting fear, scarcity, or unworthiness, the universe doesn't hear your words. It hears your signal. And the field doesn't discriminate. It simply matches. This is where the teachings of Thoth become practical. He wasn't speaking to dreamers. He was speaking to architects of energy, those ready to stop reacting to the world and start retuning it. Your consciousness is not a passenger in this experience. It's the driver. And yet, most people never touch the wheel. They ride the wave of whatever thought, mood, or news cycle is loudest. They get pulled into collective fear, societal programming, and old trauma patterns, thinking it's just life. But it's not life. It's the channel you're tuned into. And the second you realize you can shift that dial, the entire frequency begins to change. Tuning your consciousness isn't about escape. It's about refinement. It's about noticing what you're unconsciously feeding and choosing to feed something different. Choosing presence over panic, stillness over noise, trust over control. Not because it's easy, but because it recalibrates everything. When you shift your consciousness, you shift the field. And when the field shifts, people, opportunities, even time responds differently. You've probably felt it before. Those moments where you're fully aligned and everything flows. You meet the right person at the right time. You think of something and it shows up. You speak and people actually hear you. That's not a coincidence. That's coherence. It's what happens when your consciousness is clear, your frequency is tuned, and the field has nothing left to resist. You're not trying to make life happen. You're becoming the version of you that life can't help but respond to. But here's the catch. Tuning isn't a one-time thing. It's a practice, a discipline, a state of being. The moment you tune into a higher frequency, the lower ones start to fall away. Not always peacefully, but necessarily. Old versions of you dissolve. Old beliefs get uncomfortable. And people who resonated with your former self may not recognize you anymore. That's the cost of coherence. But it's also the reward. Because every time you hold a higher frequency longer than the last time, your field upgrades. It gets clearer, sharper, stronger, and your reality follows suit. Thoth didn't say, create reality. He said, tune into it. Because everything already exists in the field. The life you're calling in isn't far away. It's on a different frequency. And once you match it, you don't chase it. You become it. And everything else has no choice but to align. Emotion is not weakness. It's not chaos. It's not something to suppress, manage, or avoid. Emotion is frequency in motion. It's the raw signal your field uses to communicate, to attract, to transform. Every emotion you feel is a tuning fork, either pulling your energy into coherence or scattering it into confusion. Thoth didn't dismiss emotion. He saw it for what it truly is. One of the most powerful forces in the vibrational universe. Not because it feels strong, but because it imprints your field faster than thought alone ever could. This is why thinking positively often fails. Because without the emotional signal to back it up, your affirmations are just static, hollow vibrations. It's the feeling behind the thought that shapes the energy. You can smile while you're anxious, pretend you're calm while you're burning inside, speak confidently while your field screams insecurity, and the universe won't listen to your surface. It responds to your depth. The field doesn't read performance, it reads frequency. And frequency never lies. We're taught to view emotions as personal, fleeting, or inconvenient. But they're not just private moments. They're energetic transmissions. When you carry resentment, it doesn't stay tucked away inside. It warps your field, coloring how people perceive you, how opportunities respond to you, how even your body begins to function. Chronic guilt. It lowers your energetic baseline until you start manifesting punishment on autopilot. Suppressed anger. It creates distortion in the heart, the voice, the breath. Your field doesn't forget. Every emotional frequency leaves an imprint. This is what Thoth meant when he spoke of the inner fire, the all-consuming force that can transmute density into light. He wasn't talking about rage. He was pointing to the energy that builds when you stop suppressing, when you let the emotion rise, burn, and purify. That's emotional alchemy, the process of feeling without collapsing, observing without reacting, allowing without judgment. When you do this, the emotion completes its cycle. The frequency integrates, and your field updates. But most people were never taught how to feel safely. They were taught to manage, to cope, to numb, to turn sadness into silence, to turn fear into control, to wear strength like armor instead of presence like truth. So their field becomes fragmented, layers of unresolved frequencies clashing underneath the surface. And they wonder why life feels so disjointed, why clarity doesn't stick, why peace feels like a visitor instead of a home. To align your vibration, you have to reclaim your emotional body, not to get lost in it, but to free it. You start by listening without interruption. You stop turning every feeling into a problem to fix. You let the emotion move like a current, without resisting it, without indulging it, without attaching to it. Just presence, just breathe, just sensation. When you do this, something changes. The emotion shifts, the weight lifts. Not because you forced it out, but because you felt it through. That's the difference between emotional reactivity and emotional alchemy. One keeps the vibration locked, the other releases it. And every time you choose to feel instead of freeze, your field becomes more coherent, more magnetic, more true. Energetic memory lives in the body, in the breath, in the posture, in the cells. That's why old wounds still echo, even when the story is long gone. You don't just think you're past, you vibrate it until you clear it. And clearing doesn't happen through logic. It happens through presence, through allowing the energy to rise, express, release, and return to stillness. Thoth's teachings weren't about becoming robotic monks who never feel. They were about becoming masters of the field. And emotion is part of the field. The heart has its own electromagnetic pulse, stronger than the brain, wider than your words. When you feel love, gratitude, truth, not just in your head, but in your body, your field expands. It becomes coherent, resonant, alive. That's when you become magnetic. That's when life responds with clarity. Not because you demanded it, but because you tuned into it. The most powerful emotions are not the loudest. They're the cleanest. And when your emotional field is clean, your vibration rises effortlessly. You stop trying to manifest. You start aligning. And everything begins to move. Nothing in the universe sustains chaos forever. Everything seeks return. Everything seeks rhythm. Everything, when left undisturbed, will find its way back to balance. But most people never give themselves the stillness to return. They stay in motion, thinking it's the solution, mistaking constant doing for healing, mistaking exhaustion for transformation. Thoth understood what science is only now beginning to grasp, that the universe operates on harmonic patterns, and when your inner field is balanced, the outer world can't help but synchronize. This isn't a metaphor, it's a law. Your life reflects the frequency you sustain with the most consistency, and your most consistent vibration comes not from your moments of clarity, but from your baseline of being. Balance isn't perfection. It's not floating above your feelings or shutting down your instincts. It's not about becoming indifferent or emotionally numb. True inner balance is the quiet power that comes when your emotions, thoughts, and energy aren't fighting each other. It's the inner stillness that exists even when the world is shaking. When Thoth said that nothing can rise until the foundation is steady, he was pointing to this: energetic stability. Not forced calm, but grounded coherence. When your frequency is balanced, it doesn't mean you never feel fear or doubt. It means you stop living from those frequencies. You can feel them without collapsing into them. You can witness them without amplifying them. You return, and when you return, everything else recalibrates. Your decisions sharpen, your intuition clears, your reactions soften. You stop swinging between extremes, chasing highs or avoiding lows. You become the center point, and the universe, being vibrational by nature, responds to that center like a tuning fork. But here's the catch most people don't want to face. Imbalance is addictive. The highs and lows of drama, emotional chaos, constant stimulation, they keep your nervous system activated, your field scattered, your energy leaking. It gives you the illusion of movement without actual progress. So when you first start seeking inner balance, it can feel boring, like something's missing. But that's not boredom, it's spaciousness. The space your true signal needs to stabilize. It's the quiet that allows the deeper truth to rise. And most people are afraid of that quiet because they've spent years avoiding what's underneath it. When you begin to stabilize your energy, people around you may not understand. They may say you've changed, that you're too calm, too distant, too different. But that's because your new vibration doesn't match their old frequency. And balance, by its very nature, reveals imbalance. Your presence becomes a mirror, and not everyone's ready to look. But that doesn't mean you stop, because your job isn't to shrink for others, it's to resonate for yourself. Thoth taught that when your field is balanced, your reality organizes around you. Obstacles move, not because you push them out of the way, but because they no longer match your signal. Conflicts dissolve, delays unclog, patterns break. Because the frequency you now hold doesn't support the chaos you once normalized. And the beauty is, balance doesn't require effort, it requires awareness. Most people think balance is something to chase, but it's really something to stop disturbing. It's already there, beneath the noise, beneath the programming. It returns the moment you stop trying to fix yourself and start listening. Your emotions aren't the enemy. Your thoughts aren't the problem. It's the resistance between them that creates the storm. And when you remove that resistance, when you allow what is, when you breathe into the discomfort without feeding it, you return to center. And from that center, life starts to meet you differently. Not because you're trying to control it, but because you've stopped opposing it. Inner balance is the silent code that reality responds to. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove. It simply vibrates steadily, clearly, powerfully. And the field, without question, rearranges itself to match. This is what it means to live in harmony with the law, to become the eye of the storm, to emit peace in a world addicted to noise, to become so rooted in your center that everything else either aligns or disappears. And once you taste that level of balance, there's no going back. Not because you've ascended, but because you've remembered where home really is. The universe wasn't built in silence. It was built through it, through vibration, through frequency, through sound. Thoth knew this long before science caught up. He wrote not in ink, but in rhythm. Not just to inform, but to encode, to activate. When he said, "Sing thou the song of freedom," it wasn't a metaphor. It was a literal key. Because sound is not just something you hear, it's something you emit. And every sound carries structure. Every word you speak is an instruction to your field. Every breath is an adjustment to your frequency. Every silence is a return to source. Most people have no idea they're creating their reality with their voice. They speak against themselves, echo their fears, repeat beliefs that never belong to them, and wonder why their field feels blocked. But the truth is, you're always casting spells. Every sentence is a frequency. The question is, are you casting spells that liberate or limit? Sound is geometry in motion. It's invisible architecture. If you've seen cymatics, sound shaping water into perfect symmetrical patterns, you've seen proof. Vibration creates form, not the other way around. This means your voice, your tone, your words. They sculpt your experience. That's why you can feel a lie in someone's voice before you understand their words. Why some voices calm you and others drain you. It's not the message, it's the frequency underneath. The field doesn't respond to content, it responds to coherence. This is why chanting, humming, singing, even speaking truth out loud holds power. It aligns your field. It organizes your chaos. It carves space in the noise for clarity to enter. Your vocal cords aren't just for communication. They're vibrational instruments. And when you use them with intention, you don't just express, you recalibrate. Then there's the breath. The first sound you ever made, the rhythm you carry every second of every day. Most people breathe as a reflex, not a ritual. Shallow, tight, distracted. But breath is life force. It's the bridge between thought and body, between mind and field. Controlled breathing isn't a wellness trend, it's ancient technology. Inhale with presence, and you charge your field. Exhale with release, and you clear distortion. The way you breathe affects your nervous system, your thoughts, your emotions, and all of that affects your vibration. Thoth understood this. He taught not to breathe deeper, but to breathe awake. Awake to the moment, awake to the body, awake to the now. Because when you breathe consciously, you become conscious. But the final, most sacred frequency, the one most overlooked, is silence. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's origin. It's where vibration begins. The place before sound becomes form. Most people fear silence because it strips them of distraction. It leaves them naked with their truth. But that's the point. In silence, your scattered energy comes home. In silence, the noise falls away and the real signal emerges. Your intuition sharpens, your knowing rises, your field resets. Thoth knew this. He didn't tell you to find the truth. He told you to become still enough to receive it. Because silence doesn't give you answers. It puts you in the frequency where the answers already live. And once you're in that frequency, you don't have to chase clarity. You become it. So speak with intention. Let your words be medicine, not noise. Let them build, not break. Let them harmonize, not scatter. Use your voice like a tuning fork, sharp, clear, aligned. And breathe like it matters. Because it does. Every breath is a vote for presence. A reminder that life isn't something you survive, it's something you tune into. And when you tune in deeply enough, silence finds you. Not as absence, but as power. Sound, breath, silence. These aren't accessories. They are the core tools of vibrational mastery. They are the ancient triad that recalibrates the field. And when you honor them, your frequency stops reacting to life and starts generating it. You begin to feel it. That sense that your presence alone shifts the room, that your voice cuts through noise, that your breath holds space, that your silence speaks louder than any performance ever could. That's not performance, that's frequency. And once you start living from that place, the world can't help but adjust. Your body is not just biology. It's not just skin, bones, blood, and breath. It's technology. Living, breathing, responsive technology. Thoth knew this. That's why he never separated the physical from the energetic. In his teachings, the body was not a burden to escape. It was a portal to embody, a tuning device, a sacred instrument capable of receiving, transmitting, and transforming vibration. But most people don't treat their body like that. They treat it like a machine to be controlled, a container to be tolerated, or worse, an enemy to be overcome. And that's the trap. Because the moment you disconnect from your body, you disconnect from the most immediate source of frequency you have. Your body is not an obstacle. It's the access point. Every cell in your system carries memory. Not just genetic memory, but energetic memory. The way you hold your shoulders, the tension in your gut, the tightness in your jaw. These aren't just physical habits. They're vibrational imprints, echoes of old beliefs, stuck emotions, inherited fears. And until you release them, they keep shaping your field behind the scenes. You can journal your heart out, meditate for hours, reframe every thought. But if the body's still carrying the old frequency, nothing sticks. The energy stays fragmented. You stay split. That's why embodiment isn't optional. It's the missing link in most spiritual work. You can't just understand these teachings. You have to integrate them. And integration lives in the body. It's in how you breathe, how you move, how you speak, how you stand. It's the difference between knowing you are powerful and feeling it in your spine, between talking about alignment and walking into a room as alignment. Your body holds the frequency before your mind ever catches up. And when you treat it like the intelligent system it is, it starts to show you everything you've been trying to figure out. The ancients knew this. They mapped the subtle currents of life through the body. What Thoth called the currents of force now show up in traditions like Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. These are not fantasies. They're energetic pathways, channels that move frequency through the nervous system, through the breath, through presence itself. And when those channels are blocked by trauma, tension, neglect, your signal gets distorted. Your clarity fades. Your magnetism weakens. You stay stuck, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your energy isn't moving. Movement is medicine, not performance, not punishment, just pure intuitive movement. Stretch, shake, breathe, sit still and feel. Let your body lead, because it already knows how to come back into coherence if you'll stop overriding it. Healing isn't always about fixing. Sometimes it's about remembering, letting the body remember what it means to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel sacred. And safety isn't created through force. It's created through presence, through consistency, through awareness without judgment. This is why nervous system regulation is vibrational work. When your system is in fight or flight, your field closes. You can't manifest clearly from a place of survival. You can't attract peace while your spine is bracing for attack. And you can't live in truth while your chest is collapsed in protection. So you start with the body. You give it the space to soften. You breathe into the spaces that ache. You listen to the messages it's been holding for years. You bring awareness where there's been numbness. And the field begins to open. The signal gets stronger. The energy moves again. Your body doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to look a certain way. It just needs to be attuned, to be respected as the vibrational tool it is. Because when your body is aligned, your frequency stabilizes. And when your frequency stabilizes, the universe gets the message loud and clear. You are ready, not just to receive, but to sustain, to hold the frequency without crashing, to carry the shift in your cells, not just in your thoughts. This is the real embodiment, not pretending to be high vibration, but becoming it through breath, through stillness, through motion, through awareness. This is the forgotten technology. And now you remember. You were never meant to be a follower of reality. You were meant to be its architect. Thoth didn't carve the emerald tablets for the passive listener or the half-awake seeker. He left them for the one who would remember, the one who would rise, the one who would stop looking for signs and start becoming the signal. Because there comes a point in this journey where learning isn't enough, where knowing isn't enough, where even healing isn't enough. There comes a point where you step into authorship, where you stop tweaking the outer world and start rewriting the frequency that births it. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you stabilize. That's the secret most won't tell you, because it means your life is your responsibility. Not in a punishing way, but in a powerful one. It means that every thought you nurture, every emotion you repeat, every belief you embody is writing the next page of your reality. Not with words, but with frequency. The world doesn't bend to the loudest voice, it bends to the clearest signal. And when your signal is clean, when it's grounded, coherent, and aligned, life begins to reorganize around you, not because you demanded it, but because you became the version of you who no longer needs to chase. This is the vibrational threshold most never cross. They stop at inspiration, they flirt with insight, but they never sustain the shift. They rise for a few days, then crash back into old habits, old loops, old frequencies, and then they call it failure. But it's not failure, it's fragmentation. You don't need more information, you need integration. You need to hold the new vibration long enough that your field believes you, that your nervous system accepts it, that your thoughts stop fighting it. That's how the new signal takes root, not with force, with presence, with repetition, with truth. To awaken the architect within, you must begin to live like your vibration matters more than your circumstances. You must start choosing how you feel before the world gives you a reason. You must start speaking from the version of you who already knows, not the one still seeking proof. This is where the real shift happens, when you stop negotiating with your past and start constructing from your presence. Thoth never promised ease. He promised remembrance. And what you're remembering now is that you were never the effect. You were always the cause. You were never the creation. You were always the creator. The more you align with this truth, the more you realize nothing outside of you is more powerful than what you sustain within. The field doesn't care how long you've struggled. It doesn't care how many times you failed. It only responds to the frequency you hold now. And that means the future is always available. That means transformation is always one shift away. Not when things calm down, not when you finally figure it all out, but the moment you choose to vibrate differently, consistently, unapologetically, truthfully. You are the architect. And your field is the blueprint. When you shift internally, reality doesn't argue. It listens, and it aligns. Because frequency doesn't beg, it commands. And the version of you that understands this, the one who lives from it, is unstoppable. There's a moment in the journey where the words stop being information and start becoming activation, where you don't just hear the teachings, you feel them vibrating through you, where the emerald tablets are no longer something ancient and distant, but something alive inside you. This is that moment, because now you know. Your life isn't the sum of your actions, it's the echo of your frequency. And when that frequency changes, everything else follows. Not in theory, in reality. Most people spend their lives trying to change the picture, not realizing they're holding the paintbrush. They chase results, adjust plans, redo goals, but none of it sticks. Because the field doesn't care about effort, it cares about signal. And your signal is not what you perform, it's what you sustain. It's the quiet vibration beneath your words. It's the truth you can't fake. That's what life listens to. That's what bends reality. That's what turns chaos into coherence. You've now remembered that everything is frequency, that misalignment isn't failure, it's feedback, that your emotions, your breath, your presence, your silence, they're not side notes to your life. They are your life. They're the tools, the technologies, the original instruments of creation. And when you stop fighting yourself, when you stop trying to earn your transformation and instead begin to embody it, you shift the entire field. Your energy sharpens, your clarity stabilizes. You stop chasing alignment and start living as it. This doesn't mean the path becomes easy, it means it becomes real. It means you're no longer pulled around by distractions that used to shake you. It means you can hold peace even when the world tries to provoke panic. It means your vibration becomes your boundary, your compass, your currency. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to prove yourself. You just walk differently, speak differently, breathe differently, and life begins to respond differently. Some will feel the change in you and lean in. Others will fall away. Let them. Because when you rise, not everything is meant to rise with you. Vibrational elevation comes with loss, but it also comes with expansion, with alignment, with clarity. You'll find that the right people arrive without being summoned, the right opportunities open without being forced, and the right timing begins to feel effortless. Not because you got lucky, but because you finally tuned in to what was always trying to reach you. The field was never withholding, it was just waiting for resonance. And now that you've felt it, you can't unfeel it. Now that you've seen the blueprint, you can't pretend you're not the architect. Now that you've remembered who you are, you can't shrink back into forgetting. You might wobble. You might forget temporarily. But the vibration is in you now. The seed is awake. And that means you're no longer trying to become something. You're simply clearing what you never were. Don't stop here. This is just the beginning. Inside Insights Academy, our free newsletter, we go deeper. The transmissions are stronger. The codes are more complete. And for a limited time, you'll also get a free copy of the Kybalion, because this wisdom was never meant to be buried, only remembered. The link is in the description. Don't miss what's already meant for you. And if this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."